You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. Spanish authorities snag a top scattered spider hacker. HC3 issues an alert about PHP. Wired chats with ShinyHunters about the breach affecting Snowflake customers. Meta delays LLM training over European privacy concerns. D-Link urges customers to upgrade routers against a factory-installed backdoor. A new Linux malware uses emojis for command and control. Vermont's governor vetoes a groundbreaking privacy bill. California fines Blackbaud millions over a 2020 data breach. Our guest is Patrick Joyce, Proofpoint's global resident CISO, sharing some key challenges, expectations, and priorities of CISOs worldwide. Our own CSO Rick Howard joins us for a preview of his latest CSO Perspectives podcast, The Current State of XDR, a Rick-the-Toolman episode. And be sure to change those virtual locks. It's Monday, June 17th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your Cyberwire Intel Briefing. Spanish authorities, with assistance from the FBI, have arrested 22-year-old Tyler Buchanan, a key figure in the Scattered Spider hacking group, notorious for attacking organizations like MGM Resorts, Twilio, and Apple. Buchanan was apprehended in Palma de Mallorca while attempting to fly to Italy. He controlled $27 million in Bitcoin at the time. This marks the second major arrest of a Scattered Spider member in 2024, following Michael Noah Urban's earlier capture. Despite these successes, experts warn that the group's decentralized nature means they're likely to continue their activities, with new leaders ready to step in. The Health Sector Cybersecurity Coordination Center, HC3, of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, has issued an alert about a critical vulnerability in PHP affecting healthcare systems. This remote code execution flaw impacts PHP versions on Windows from version 5 through 8.3.8. The vulnerability allows attackers to execute arbitrary code when PHP is configured for CGI interaction, posing significant risks to servers. Discovered on May 7th of this year, the flaw stems from an old argument injection bug. Researchers recommend updating PHP to the latest version or applying a mod rewrite rule for unsupported versions. Despite recent detection, exploitation attempts are already occurring. HC3 emphasizes the need for robust cybersecurity measures, training, and utilizing resources like CISA's cyber hygiene vulnerability scanning services. In a piece for Wired, Kim Zetter describes how hackers, including the ShinyHunters group, breached Ticketmaster and other Snowflake customers by first compromising EPAM Systems, a Belarusian-founded contractor. Wired spoke with an individual claiming to be a member of ShinyHunters through a text chat. In the breach, about 165 accounts were affected, including Ticketmaster and Santander, with stolen data involving millions of sensitive records. The vulnerability stemmed from an EPAM employee's infected computer, allowing hackers to access credentials stored in a project management tool. Despite EPAM's denial, evidence suggests hackers used these credentials due to the lack of multi-factor authentication on Snowflake accounts. Snowflake is now working to mandate MFA for all users. Meta has delayed training its large language models using public content from Facebook and Instagram due to privacy concerns raised by the Irish Data Protection Commission. The DPC's request follows concerns over using public posts and comments. Meta expressed disappointment, calling it a setback for AI innovation in Europe, but affirmed compliance with European laws. The pause affects the launch of Meta AI in Europe. Meta plans to collaborate with the DPC and the UK's Information Commissioner's Office to address these privacy concerns. Regulators welcome the delay, emphasizing the importance of safeguarding privacy rights in AI development. A critical vulnerability in several D-Link routers allows unauthenticated attackers to gain administrative access. With a CVSS score of 8.8, this issue stems from a factory testing backdoor. Attackers can enable Telnet and obtain admin credentials. D-Link has released firmware updates. Users should promptly update to secure their devices. A newly discovered Linux malware, Discomoji, that's Disco with a G, uses emojis to execute commands on infected devices, targeting Indian government agencies. Found by Velocity and linked to Pakistan-based UTA 0137, the malware is part of a successful cyber espionage campaign. Discomoji stands out for using Discord and emojis as its command and control platform, potentially bypassing text-based security filters. It executes commands, takes screenshots, steals files, and deploys additional payloads. The malware targets a custom Linux distribution used by Indian agencies, but can affect other Linux systems. It maintains persistence via cron jobs and spreads laterally, stealing data and credentials. Vermont Governor Phil Scott vetoed a consumer privacy bill that would have allowed individuals to sue companies for data privacy violations. The legislature may override the veto with a 2/3 vote. If passed, Vermont would join a few other states with strong data privacy rights. Scott cited the private right of action as risky and burdensome for businesses. The bill also includes a kids' code for online privacy for minors. Attorney General Charity Clark criticized the veto, highlighting the bill's extensive development process. Scott urged adopting Connecticut's privacy model, which privacy advocates find weak. Bill sponsor Monique Priestley criticized the veto and tech industry's influence, while the Chamber of Progress, a progressive tech industry coalition, defended the veto, citing constitutional concerns. Software firm Blackbaud will pay a $6.75 million fine and improve data security and breach notification practices after a May 2020 hack, per California Attorney General Rob Bonta. The company, serving over 45,000 organizations, misled consumers about the breach's impact, initially denying there was access to personal data. However, Blackbaud knew by August 2020 that sensitive data, including Social Security and bank account numbers, were compromised. The complaint from California noted poor security practices, allowing the hackers prolonged access. The settlement, consistent with agreements in other states, requires Blackbaud to enhance security measures, delete unnecessary data, and improve breach response protocols. The FTC also mandated comprehensive security improvements. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Patrick Joyce, global resident CISO at Proofpoint. Our own CSO Rick Howard joins us for a preview of his latest CSO Perspectives podcast, The Current State of XDR, a Rick-the-Toolman episode. Stay with us. Struggling to secure on-prem apps with modern identity? Don't worry, you're not alone. Join industry leaders from Fortune 500 organizations to secure your apps on any cloud with any IDP, regardless of your environment's complexity. Meet Strata's identity orchestration platform, Mavericks. Say goodbye to the headaches of app refactoring and legacy tech debt. With identity orchestration, you can modernize legacy apps to use MFA or passwordless authentication in a few weeks, migrate from one IDP to another, and so much more without changing the app. No matter your IAM use case, Strata extends the value of your current identity investments. And the best part? You can try it for free today. Visit strata.io/cyberwire to share your biggest identity challenge, and they'll hook you up with a complimentary pair of AirPods Pro. Don't miss out. Visit strata.io/cyberwire. That's strata.io/cyberwire. And now, a word from our sponsor, Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. Cyber attackers are using AI in creative ways to compromise users and breach organizations. In a security landscape where you must fight AI with AI, the best AI protection comes from having the best data. Zscaler has extended its zero-trust architecture with powerful AI engines that are trained and tuned by 500 trillion daily signals. Learn more about Zscaler Zero Trust Plus AI to prevent ransomware and AI attacks. Experience your world secured. Visit zscaler.com/zerotrustai. Patrick Joyce is Global Resident CISO at Proofpoint, and I recently caught up with him for insights on some of the key challenges, expectations, and priorities of Chief Information Security Officers worldwide.
We've done this now for 3 to 4 years. I think it's 4. And it's interesting. When you look at the history of it, we've tried to keep consistent in our questions, always adding a few things, but really trying to get the perspective of practicing operational CISOs in their career, in the space that they work, in the things they think about, are concerned about, really just kind of gauge where they are. And we've grown the size of that audience, or the size of that pool of participants over the years. And it's getting to be pretty meaningful when you look at 1,600 practicing CISOs across the globe. You start to get a bigger feeling for where people really are at with regard to the threat environment and everything else.
Well, let's go through the report together here. I mean, what are some of the things that really caught your attention?
Well, I guess it caught my attention, and it's a little bit surprising. One of the things that was interesting is, not surprising, is human error is still probably the number one vulnerability area that concerns CISOs. What that means is people making mistakes, people may be clicking on things they shouldn't click on, taking information they shouldn't take, those sorts of things. Some is intentional, some is unintentional. But the whole aspect of the human error and human interaction being the leading cause of a lot of cyber vulnerabilities is not new, but it's still number one in terms of people's concern. Like 74% of the survey this year indicated they had that concern. So with that, one of the things that did surprise me was that CISOs obviously fear cyber attacks. They feel more prepared, is probably the way to put it. They have a growing confidence in the security measures that they've taken, and they feel better about where they are. It doesn't mean that the attacks are going to go away. What it means is they feel like they're in a better position to deal with them. And that was probably the thing that jumped out at me as the most interesting in the report.
Where do we stand in terms of attitudes toward things like ransomware?
Oh, still ransomware and malware. I mean, you have to put the two together because the malware causes the ransomware. Still is the top concern for CISOs, because when you think about it, they want to be able to take proactive measures to protect their environments, and they can take all kinds of proactive measures. But in the end, if an attack is successful, from a malware standpoint, if a bad actor is able to gain control of the system or access or credentials, et cetera, then they're kind of off to the races and they have less control over those things. And now they have to mitigate that risk or mitigate that actual situation, perhaps recover from an outage, perhaps recover from data loss. So it's still way up there in terms of the concern because it can shut down enterprises, it can shut down organizations and have significant impact on financials and operations and people for that matter.
I'd be remiss to not ask you about the hot topic these days, which of course is AI. How are CISOs reacting to this new reality here?
Well, we actually wrote this in a report earlier this year. It really is a double-edged sword. It promises to be a great benefit. I mean, organizations like Proofpoint have been using AI for years in our algorithms, in our products to detect and prevent attacks and malicious activity. I think what you're referring to is generative AI, or the ability of individuals to interact with AI. And I think that's probably one of the greatest concerns CISOs have is that, this is going to allow the bad guys to operate more effectively. It's I think somebody said it's going to turn the JV team into the varsity team or the college into the pros because it covers up a lot of sins. So from a bad guy perspective, it's a concern because it makes them look better. They can generate code faster. They can do things more effectively, no different than good guys can do with AI. The good thing for Proofpoint is that we're able to leverage and continue to leverage AI to prevent the bad things from happening. So when I say it's a double-edged sword, it really is. It's not going away. I mean, it's the buzzword of 2023, 2024. And it's going to it's becoming common lexicon, no different than cloud and mobile were a few years ago.
What about the CISO's relationship with the other leaders in an organization? When they have to go in and make their case to the board, did this year's report have any insights on where that's headed and how that's going?
Yeah, I think relationship-wise across the C-suite is still strong, and CISOs are being treated more like they're members of that leadership team. They're expected to drive a lot of business activity and have a voice in business decisions, especially when it comes to merger and acquisition and divestiture and other sorts of things. The security expertise is crucial in those kind of decision makings across the business. But the question that's always been there is what the report revealed this year was that board to CISO relationship has really improved. This year, 84% of the CISOs agreed that their board members basically see eye to eye with them on cybersecurity issues. That's a huge jump. It was 62% last year and 59% the year before. So 84 up from 62 in 1 year is a huge jump. What's interesting though is there's still lots of decisions and lots of positions on resource utilization. And I think a lot of CISOs are struggling, and they continue to say they're struggling with being able to, get permission to backfill people who have left, or being able to have the budgets that they need to effectively control their environment. So just because the relationships are maybe better or they perceive to be better, there's still resource constraints and concerns. And that's true, of course, in any part of any business. But when it comes down to being able to protect the entire enterprise, those are challenges that CISOs have to deal with.
I'm curious, what your sense is in the overall tone of the people responding to your questions here. I mean, is there a sense of optimism out there?
I think there's cautious optimism, but there's still a lot of pressures on the CISO. We said in the report that the pressures really are kind of unrelenting. In this year's report, 53% of the CISOs admitted to burnout compared to 60% last year. So that sounds better, but they still feel that they are facing excessive expectations in their role, changes in their role, and that's up to 61%, up from 49% the year before. So the burnout percentage might be a little bit less year over year, but the excessive expectations is high. The changing environment is high. You throw on that the budget aspect and the headcount thing I just talked about. You throw in the changing environment. You throw in AI. And then on top of that, you throw in the regulatory, both current and anticipated regulatory demands on the role. And it's a lot. It's a lot for CISOs to carry.
When I look at a report like this, one of the things that comes to mind is that if I'm out there and I'm a CISO, I can read through a report like this and be reassured that I'm not alone, that there are other people out there who are feeling a lot of the same things that I'm feeling and facing some of the same challenges that I'm facing. I'm curious, based on the information that you've gathered here, are there any general takeaways or words of wisdom to share with CISOs?
Well, I think this what CISOs would, to your point, CISOs are not in competition with each other. And they talk about this. And there is a collective ecosystem of support across CISOs. And there is the ability to benchmark and share. I know myself in my prior role as the CISO and CSO at Medtronic, I worked regularly with peers across multiple industries to share information. And we encouraged our staffs to do that as well. So the good news is there isn't a feeling of competition or I have a secret. It's in contrast to that is actually the sharing of information, the ability to help others become better and keep bad things from happening to them. So I think if you look at it from a broader support system for CISOs, it's strong at a CISO to CISO level. And they feel that support. And I feel that when I talk to them on a regular basis, that there's no competition.
That's Patrick Joyce, Global Resident CISO at Proofpoint. And it is always my pleasure to welcome back to the show Rick Howard. He is N2K CyberWire's Chief Security Officer and also our Chief Analyst. Rick, good to have you back.
Hey, Dave.
So the audience has spoken, and they are excited to have CSO Perspectives back in their favorite podcast app after a long break. So what do you got in store for us this week, Rick?
Yeah, it's like getting back in the saddle. We're on episode 2 of this season, right? So I've forgotten how to do all those things.
Yeah.
This week we're talking about a favorite topic of mine. It's a new tool. It's a relatively new cybersecurity tool called XDR. Are you familiar with it, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say year before this most recent RSA conference, it was the hot phrase on everybody's lips, right?
Yeah, it stands for Extended Detection and Response. And, Gartner 2 years ago put it on just rising to the peak of inflated expectations because it was brand new. Right. And last year they put it on the backside of that peak and screaming down to the trough of disillusionment, right? And so, but I'm a big fan of the concept, and this is right about the time when a bunch of security professionals they start to lose faith in a technology because the vendor offerings don't really match what the hype was, right? And what I'm saying is I don't want you to lose sight because I think this is going to be a big thing for everybody. Do you know how it works? That's the reason I love it, is the way they go about their business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, give us the rundown here.
Well, before XDR, the way we track bad guys is we would collect log files in SIEM tools. And, SOC analysts would spend their lives, sifting through all that hay to find needles. And, and for 20 years, that was the way to do it. XDR changed that process. Instead of sending log files to a big SIEM database, the XDR tool itself uses APIs to connect to the systems itself, right? And then you're not just limited to the log files the security tool spits out. You can grab pretty much anything that you think is useful, which that's kind of a minor change, right? And then people say, well, that's really a technical, nerdy detail, Rick. But here's the thing. It allows us now, because we are connecting to APIs, you can send stuff back the other way. All right. So if you've decided that you do not have the right security control for Wicked Spider, you don't have to go through a manual process of going to every piece in the security stack, all right, and implementing that control. You can do it right through the API. And the reason I love this, okay, it goes to our first principle thinking here at the CyberWire. All right, this will it will make it a lot easier to automate things in the future. So this whole show talks about the history of all that and why I think it's so important. And it's a pretty decent show.
Yeah. What's the transition been like? I mean, you sort of alluded to it, how, things either capture the imagination of folks or, dare I say, the marketing folks get their grips on it. And so it becomes hard to separate the hype from the reality. For folks who have adopted this, are they finding that it's been a good transition?
Well, that's why it's Gartner is placing, racing down the backside of the peak towards the trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
The big promise of XDR is that you can connect to any security device in your security stack, not just one vendor, but all the vendors. But what's happened so far is most of the vendor offerings only work with their own product set, like the big platform players, right? And so that's a little disillusioning. It'll get better as we go forward. But the big promise that we thought we were going to get was that when it was introduced back in 2018, we thought we were just going to dump all that data into a big data lake, and run machine learning algorithms on it and find bad guys. No, we're not finding bad guys. We're finding anomalies, more hay in the haystack, but we haven't found new instances of, some wicked spider or something like that. So it has a way to go before we get to that nirvana, but it has all the promise, and I expect it to come true. And Gartner says 5 to 10 years before it reaches the peak of productivity as they lay it out.
Huh. Okay. Well, hopefully it won't be like, fusion energy that's always 20 years old,
always 20,
no matter when you ask.
Or quantum, or
right,
or the singularity.
All the things that are going to solve all of our problems. Yeah.
Any day now. Yeah. And flying cars, Dave. Flying cars.
There you go. Oh, Rick, it's so hard not to be cynical. It's so hard not to be cynical. All right, well, the show is CSO Perspectives, and you can find it right here on the N2K Cyberwire Network or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Rick Howard, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Enterprises today are using hundreds of SaaS apps. Are you reaping their productivity and innovation benefits, or are you lost in the sprawl? Enter Savvy Security. They help you surface every SaaS app, identity, and risk, so you can shine a light on shadow IT and risky identities. Savvy monitors your entire SaaS attack surface to help you efficiently eliminate toxic risk combinations and prevent attacks. So go on, get savvy about SaaS and harness the productivity benefits. Fuel innovation while closing security gaps. Visit savvy.security to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
And finally, Nagaraju Kandula, a former quality assurance employee at National Computer Systems in Singapore, was sentenced to over 2 years in prison for deleting 180 virtual servers after being fired. In a vengeful spree, Kandula caused $678,000 in damages by using his still-active credentials. Fired for poor performance in November of 2022, he accessed NCS systems multiple times, testing and ultimately executing a server wiping script in March of 2023. His actions were traced back to him via his IP address and Google search history on how to delete virtual servers. Though no sensitive data was compromised, the incident underscores the critical need for companies to promptly revoke access for terminated employees. NCS learned the hard way that neglecting this basic security step can lead to costly and disruptive consequences. So remember, friends, always change the locks when someone leaves. Again, that's the Cyberwire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment on Jason and Brian's show every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. You can email us at cyberwire@n2k.com. Your feedback helps us ensure we're delivering the information and insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. We're privileged that N2K and podcasts like the Cyberwire are part of the daily intelligence routine of many of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, as well as the critical security teams supporting the Fortune 500 and many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K Strategic Workforce Intelligence optimizes the value of your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. With over 8,000 threat hunters analyzing over 65 trillion signals daily, Microsoft works tirelessly with the federal government to keep our nation's data secure. This 30-year-plus partnership is driving mission innovation that is secure by design. Whether optimizing your existing defenses or tackling advanced threats with AI, Microsoft gives you the intelligence and the automation you need to defend at mission scale. Let's work together to stay ahead of emerging threats and secure your mission anywhere. Learn more at aka.ms/fedcyber. That's aka.ms/fedcyber.